for pure will, unassuaged of purpose, and delivered from the lust of result, is every way perfect. The perfect and the perfect are one perfect, and not two, nay, are none. Nothing is the secret key of this law. 61 the Jews call it. I call it 880, 418. My prophet is a fool with his one. Are not they the ox, and none by the book? Abrogate are all rituals, all ordeals, all words and signs. Ra-Hoor-Khuit hath taken his seat in the east at the equinox of the gods. Let us be with Isa, who are also one. Let us be the ardent, Isa the sufferer. Hoor, in his secret name and splendor, is the Lord initiating. My prophet is a fool with his 111. Are not they the ox, and none by the book? Of course. So, the ox is Aleph, the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. There's some homonym games going on there with the names of the Hebrew letters. And it goes back to an earlier Proto-Semitic alphabet. I can't remember the name of it right now. But each of the letters in that previous alphabet were named after, were homonyms with other words in that language that meant things, and in Hebrew it's very, very similar, so we carry over the associations. And Aleph, by tradition, is the letter, this sort of equivalent to our Hebrew letter A, but it's also the number 1, because the early Jewish people did not have the Arabic alphabet, so they used their, the early Jewish people did not have the Arabic numerals, so they used their alphabet letters as numbers as well. So it's not a secret numerology thing. The character for Aleph is also the character for the number 1. The word Aleph sounds very much like the word ox in Hebrew, and so we associate the word, the letter Aleph, with the animal, the ox. And none by the book, because the tarot card associated with the Aleph, the letter Aleph, is the Fool. My prophet is a fool with his 111, and the tarot card is numbered 0. So the Magus is the letter Beth, which is the B letter, and Beth is the number 2, but the Magus tarot card is number 1, and the Fool tarot card prefigures that in the lineup. It's the number 0. Forgive me, I don't know what's up with my stomach these days. I keep belching into the mic on these videos. But also, let's look at the first chapter, the first verse of each of the 3 chapters of the book, because it's 1, 1, and 1. 3 chapters, 3 verse number 1s. So, chapter 1, verse 1. Had, the manifestation of Nuit. Now, Had is, for the sake of simplicity, the single point of perspective, the identity of a human being which observes its environment. And Nuit is, she describes herself as the infinite space and the infinite stars thereof. We'll get into that later, but that's, for the sake of argument, let's say that's the distinction. So Had is the manifestation of Nuit. The identity is the manifestation of the everything. When we come into philosophy, we're all what we call naive realists. This perspective means different things, but my association with it is the association with the dualist perspective. And when people say dualism, they mean a lot of things. They might mean like the creator-creature distinction is a good one, how God is remote from his creation, and then the way those two things interact might be a kind of dualism. Or people say like good and evil, or a gender binary, and they accuse each other of being obsessed with dualisms. You not understand how morality is fluid, or like how gender is a spectrum, or whatever. But they're missing it. This is dualism. The fundamental dualism is the self, not self distinction. Creator-creature distinction is not bad, but self, not self distinction, that's the dualist perspective. And that also is the naive realist perspective, whether you realize it or not. You may think that other individual people have identity, or you might be breaking up the world into, you certainly are breaking up the world into categories, doing a taxonomy of things, like that's a dresser drawer and that's a cat. But it won't take you much doing to begin to think of the fundamental division as self, not self. Okay? And everything that is the not self is available to us only through our sense perceptions. Even things which are learned not by experience, but by teaching, by instruction. Instruction is a sense experience. So if somebody tells you something, it comes in through the ears. Or if somebody shows you something, it comes in through the eyes. So it took me a while to understand that that's what Kant was getting at, because no, not everything is a matter of experience. Some things are a matter of record, but the experience of interacting with the record is still an experience. So the world, the macrocosm, at least as far as you understand it, exists completely within your microcosm. All right? So there are a bunch of ways, a bunch of cute little aphorisms that we use in Hermeticism to express this. The most famous one is the first verse of the Emerald Tablet, the only one verse of the Emerald Tablet anyone ever quotes. That which is above is alike to that which is below, and that which is below is alike to that which is above, to make the miracle of the one thing. That is the not self is only perceived by the self. So Had is the manifestation of Nuit. Chapter 2, verse 1. Nuit, the hiding of Hadit. So again, Nuit is everything, Hadit is the individual point of perspective. We've already learned that the cosmos is a phenomenon of our sense perceptions, that we don't penetrate it in a meaningful way. We just experience it, and we can consider it, and we can draw conclusions, and we can do science at it. But these things, and we can learn things that are empirical, that seem to be empirical, but the facts of the matter at hand, and this is as early as Descartes and Plato and many other people, that the fact is that the universe for us is what we experience, and we define ourselves by that experience. But the insight of the first verse of the second chapter is that we are also sort of enclosed in that experience, obscured, if you like, necessarily by that experience. Nuit is the hiding of Hadith. We don't, I mean, we're aware of our existence. We're fundamentally and tacitly aware of our existence. And we can become actively aware of our existence at the drop of a hat. I just was listening to a conversation on Avicenna, which was all about this. Avicenna thought that the fundamental ground of being was this kind of low-level hum of self-awareness. But what it is that self is that we're aware of is always obscured by its relationship to sense objects, right? I mean, I'm married, so I might sometimes think of myself as a husband or a father. I do these videos, so maybe I can think of myself, and I work with a sort of a hermetic temple, so maybe I can think of myself as a teacher and a student. My job, my name, all of this stuff. These are but these don't describe me. These describe my relationships. And when it comes to getting at the real core, the real point event, the thing that is the identity that connects all these experiences and says they're my experiences and not some other person's, or I was so drunk last night I wasn't really me. I mean, we know what we mean when we say that, but we don't believe it. We think that person was us, right? It wasn't someone else. It was just some unfamiliar version of myself that acts that way when it gets drunk. And it's very, very mysterious what the core of this identity principle is. Sometimes it's thought of as continuity between thoughts. I was someplace a few minutes ago, and I'm going someplace in a few minutes, and there's a material basis, my body, and as long as there's this chain of experience remains intact, I think that I'm myself. This is problematic because if people get, punched unconscious, then they lose a few moments from that chain of experience, and they're not someone different when they wake up. So to define the actual principle of the self is, I shouldn't say principle, but to define what the nature of the self actually is extremely difficult linguistically, and it's because, sorry Avicenna, we don't have access to the concept intellectually. Our awareness of the self is hidden in the context of our sensory experience. Nuit is the hiding of Hadith. And then verse 1 of chapter 3, Abrahadabra, the reward of Ra-Hoor-Khuit. This is even worse. Abrahadabra, we learn, is the key of the rituals. The key of the rituals is in the secret word which I have given unto him. And the secret word is Abrahadabra. It's an open secret, so it's not weird that I told you. Abrahadabra, the reward of Ra-Hoor-Khuit. If we can open the rituals with our key, then the god of the Aeon will give us some gift. This is not as radical an expression of duality. This is us beginning to carve up the things in the world in the taxonomical way that we need to in order to make any sense of our experience, right? This kind of this faculty of reason, the faculty of naming things and categorizing things, is a necessity. So not only are some things self and something and everything and some things not self, now we have some things are Ra-Hoor-Khuit and some things are the reward of Ra-Hoor-Khuit and some other things aren't. So we're back in the mire again. We've spent 2 chapters trying to work out radical duality, and now we've fallen back from that into an even lower place. My prophet is a fool with his one. Are not they the ox and none by the book? Well, we can imagine, we aren't sure, but we can imagine that Crowley was aiming at a kind of monist philosophy at this time. I mean, if you read Bereshit, the note in ontology, where he talks about the Kabbalistic zero, the nothing, sort of exploding into the infinite, is, zero divided by infinity. He says, we don't know what it is, but it is some finite number. So we know that the universe is not boundless. I mean, this math is impossible. Infinity is not a number. It's a set of concepts, if you like. It just means not finite, unclearly defined. And it's unclearly defined because it's really big. It's infinitely big, but in which direction and on how many planes? You can do different infinities and prove that they're different by sort of, frankly, parlor trick methods, but they're rigorous. They work. So my prophet is a fool with his one. This monist perspective that, we're all just one thing, man. We're all the same. It's just one. We're all one, man. Is being declared as foolish and faulty. Okay, the one. That's the right kind of fool. That's the aspirant going out on his journey. The self venturing into the not self, and Nuit's going to tell us what the results of this are going to be. She says, nothing is a secret key of this law. None breathe the light, faint and fairy of the stars, and 2, those are parenthetic clauses. Faint and fairy of the stars is between 2 commas. None breathe the light of the stars is between 2 commas. None breathe the light, faint and fairy of the stars. So none and 2 is our first glimpse of the 0 equals 2. And the 2 being +1 -1, it's sort of cheating, but it's the self, not self. And when we unite those things in deep meditation or by magical methods, as Crowley did, the result is not, a sense of unity. The result is a sense of oblivion. and the reward shall be my ecstasy, the consciousness of the continuity of existence, the omnipresence of my body. Sounds monist, doesn't it? The omnipresence of my body. But she's clear. Nothing is the secret key of this law. What is nothing? 61, the Jews call it. 61 is the number of ayin, the first veil of Nuit, above the tree of life, above creation, above the creator. So the creator-creature distinction doesn't work in Kabbalah as being meaningfully dualist. Self, not self is still better. The Kabbalistic zero, which is the nothing that exists before. Before what? Before. Chapter 1, verse 61. The 61st chapter of the book. Nothing is a secret key of this law. 61, the Jews call it. What's the 61st chapter? But to love me is better than all things. If under the night stars in the desert thou presently burnest my incense before me, invoking me with a pure heart, and the serpent flame therein, thou shalt come a little to lie in my bosom. For one kiss, wilt thou then be willing to give all? But whoso gives one particle of dust shall lose all in that hour. Parenthetically, there we are again. Lose all in that hour. See? Doesn't sound monist anymore, does it? We're gone. For one kiss wilt thou then be willing to give all, but whoso gives one particle of dust shall lose all in that hour. For one kiss, nothing. And parentheses, shall lose all in that hour. You shall gather goods and store of women and spices. You shall wear rich jewels. You shall exceed the nations of the earth in splendor and in pride, but always in the love of me. And so shall ye come to my joy. I charge you earnestly to come before me in a single robe and covered with a rich headdress. I love you. I yearn to you. Pale or purple, veiled or voluptuous, I, who am all pale and purple and drunkenness of the innermost sense, desire you. Put on the wings. Arouse the coiled splendor within you. Come unto me. She loves us as much as we love her. And this sexual metaphor, this romance is not a mistake. There we are back again in our dualism, the self-not-self distinction. Everything is the aspirant and the love object. There is nothing else. "61, the Jews call it. Do modern Jews seek to be annihilated by their God? I don't know. Certainly the pre-Christian Jews who didn't have a concept of the afterlife, who believed in death in a meaningful way, who lived for God and then died. I mean, there's a romance in that, isn't there? The chosen people. To live on the earth, to live for God and then die. I think we can read Jews, though, the way Nietzsche reads Jews, when Nietzsche is accusing the Jews of conspiracy, of saying that Christianity is a Jewish conspiracy to destroy the aristocracy. The Jews he names are Jesus, Mary and Paul, the primeval Christians. And so this romance, this almost death and resurrection experience, you shall lose all in that hour, and then gather goods and store of women and spices, rich jewels exceed the nations of the earth. This is because if we're brave enough to confront Christ, to have this crucifixion, and if we've lived life for that one kiss, being willing to give all, principles of charity, principles of mercy, principles of self-sacrifice. When we lose all in that hour, we get it all back in the kingdom of heaven. I mean, that's not what's going on in the verse, but she's talking about something much more romantic and much more present. She says she offers certainty, not faith, while in life, upon death. So this is not a sort of black school life denial and reward principle, but you can talk about it in that way. This is why 61 the Jews, they're Christians, 61 the Jews call it, but I call it 8 and 80, 418. It's verse 8. The cobs is in the coup, not the coup in the cobs. Worship in the cobs, and behold, my light shed over you. Cobs is star. And coup, I don't actually know. The 7-layer Egyptian soul, I'm sure there are more. Cobs is the star. Cobs is Hadid. And what this verse is doing, even though I admit now in front of God and everyone that I don't know what it's saying, because without coup, it's a mystery. The way we talk about it in Hermeticism, the coup, is that there's these sort of veils. They're creased over each other, they're folded together, they're embracing the star so that the light can't shine through. They're very light, beautiful, silky veils, but they're folded. And the veils are the personality, the identity, all of our sense perceptions, and that as we do our Hermetic work, these veils get kind of ironed out, smoothed out, organized a little bit better so that the light from the cobs, from the interior star, can shine through, and we can radiate our true consciousness into the world. But again, I don't know what the coup is, what what that refers to in terms of Egyptian, the Egyptian model of the soul. But what he's doing is preemptively, because Sartre hasn't written yet, he's preemptively correcting Sartre. Sartre says existence precedes essence, that we are first, and in being existent, that spontaneously, instantaneously, but notably subsequently creates an essence. And there are good things about this. It means we have radical freedom. I am not a waiter. I am waiting tables now. And because I am waiting tables now, I am a waiter. So yes, this is my essence, if you like, but I have the radical freedom that in every moment I can choose how I respond to that moment. I could just stop being a waiter. There is no sunk cost fallacy in existentialism. Or rather, existentialism is a violent reaction against sunk cost fallacy. Yes, you can. Quit your fucking job. Just, if you don't want to wait tables anymore, don't. Well, this says there is something. There is a seed for each individual. Nothing is the secret key of this law. I call it 8. Why would she point us back towards duality again? None breathe the light, faint and fairy of the stars, and 2. If you know the book of the law, the subsequent verses solve it. But we'll get there. We'll get there in a moment. There is no verse 80. The first chapter ends at 66. The second chapter begins at 1. So we're looking for $14. Now let there be a veiling of this shrine. Now let the light devour men and eat them up with blindness. Now let there be a veiling of this shrine. We said that for Hermeticists the coup is sort of a problem. The shrine is already veiled. It prevents the interior light from shining through. So why would we want to veil an already veiled shrine? But remember that the personality is our reflection of the world around us. So, and remember that 61, Ayin, Sof, R, those are called the veils of not. So, there's an important relationship in this metaphor. The veils of the coup, the veils of not. The veils of the coup are our perceptions of the actual realities out in the world. So what this is asking us to do is to deepen this relationship, again through meditation, through magic, by expanding the domain of our consciousness. Now let the light devour man and eat them up with blindness. It's not this sort of romantic metaphor anymore, is it? It's about being consumed, destroyed, obliterated. Samadhi is destructive. Elsewhere in our holy books it talks about a venom which corrupts everything. Nothing is a secret key of this law. The drive is towards annihilation, both of the self and the universe. I call it 8 and 80, 418. Well, there is no verse 418. Even if you add all the chapters together, there's only 220 verses, I think that's correct. So you need to go to Liber 418, which was Crowley's attempt to satisfy these conditions out in the desert, having homosexual intercourse, receiving homosexual intercourse from Victor Newberg, and doing magical operations, seeking erotic destruction of the type described in verse 61. And there are long parables. There are long descriptions of the visions related to Crowley, available in The Vision and the Voice, Liber 4:18. Look here, so we're seeking erotic destruction. Why erotic destruction? I'm going to read to you kind of weirdly from The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. There's a novelization or a spin-off novel from the TV show Twin Peaks. They're not like supposed to be, it's not traditionally thought to be good. Remember, for one kiss wilt thou then be willing to give all. So Josh leaned into me and got real close, and just before he was going to kiss me, he said, real quiet, softly, right? And I told him yes. And he said soft and slow. And he opened his mouth and I opened mine, and our tongues started to move together like we were wanting more and more. But it wasn't fast, it was slow. So nice and slow. And Rick was sucking on my nipples and making noises like he was hungry and getting fed, or like he was eating ice cream that was delicious. No matter what he was feeling, believe me, I felt 10 times better than he sounded. I went into a dream, for I don't know how long while this was happening, and it was like nothing bad ever happened to me ever. Everything disappeared, and suddenly I didn't care if I never saw Donna, Mom, Dad, anyone ever again. This warm feeling of being needed, wanted, and special, like I was a treasure, was all I wanted to feel forever. I had no age, and there was no time or schoolwork or trouble or choices or anything to cloud my mind or bring me back to little Laura. I was ageless, and I was everything these two boys wanted, and I was something from their dreams. I think it's a good description of this sort of like, maybe not your first time, because your first time might be awkward and self-conscious, but early in the erotic experience, this feeling of being dissolved by sex. It's deeply analogous to what we're trying to do in the meditative experience. Let's talk about this a little bit more before we get back to None Breathe the Light, Faint and Fairy of the Stars, and 2. What about what about now, therefore, am I known to ye by my name Nuit, and to him by a secret name, which I will give him when at last he knoweth me. Since I am infinite space, and the infinite stars thereof, do ye also thus. Bind nothing. Let there be no difference made among you between any one thing and any other thing, but for thereby cometh hurt. Since I am infinite space and the infinite stars thereof. Well, what is space? Is it the grounds of existence? the infernal emptiness? Is it the fear of what we're trying to become in our meditation? No, I mean space exists. Space is a substance. Space is this is stupid. Let me change tact here a little bit. Let's go with space as the grounds of existence. What are stars? Well, if you look up at the sky, stars are these little twinkly points. I mean, they're massive, massive, massive balls of flaming gas and heat emitting light and possessed of gravity. But think of the scale. Think of the volume of space compared to the volume of stars. No matter how big they are really kind of these little twinkling points of light. But they're individual points of perspective, and they're relational. You have infinite space, and then when you have the infinite stars thereof, you have individuals which are in relationship to other individuals, and so there's the potential for movement. They give perspective on each other, the hiding of Hedit. They give perspective on each other, and they can change in relation to each other. So there's the potential for motion. And Crowley wants you to read the Prolegomena to Any Future Metaphysics by Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant says, because our understanding of the world is through our sense experience, that we don't have any access to things in themselves. We know that redness, sort of rectangularness, leafy softness, these tactile qualities, he'll call it extension. He means, the dimension. And Crowley will talk about extension in terms of this extended into the category of redness. Category is a word that Crowley borrows from Kant. Kant thinks we have these special categories under which information gets subsumed, and these special categories are inherent in our being. Kant derives the concept from Aristotle, although Kant's special qualities are different than the Aristotelian ones. But even beneath these special qualities, on a more fundamental level, we have a faculty of space and time. Space and time are not, Kant thinks, brute facts of the universe. They are not things in themselves. Space and time are the faculty which allows us to have perceptions. Could be a different faculty. It isn't. We have perceptions because we impose upon the universe our power of space and time. Maybe space and time, our perceptions of space and time, correspond also to things in themselves in the same way that redness corresponds to, the waves of light being reflected off this book. What the actual quality of the book is, we don't know, except that it has the power to reflect red light, absorb all other colors. But the light is a secondary quality. The color is a secondary quality. The power to reflect is the primary quality. Kant thinks all qualities are secondary qualities, and that we don't know what the primary qualities are. And so we have to think of space and time as being characteristics of the observer, not the observed. I am infinite space and the infinite stars thereof. this idea of perspective, the infinite stars being in relationship to each other, the potential to move. Movement is what tells us that time is taking place. So Nuit is space and time. I just burped again. I'm sorry, I'm so gassy. It's embarrassing. But how could she be the fundamental God? With the God and the adorer, I am nothing. They do not see me. They are as upon the earth. I am heaven. There is no other God than me and my Lord Hadit. How could this be true? How could Nuit be fundamental if she is infinite space and the infinite stars thereof? Simply the faculty of the observer. Let's go to verse 14, which I think is part of Crowley's poetic paraphrase of the stele. Most of that appears in chapter 3, but here there's a way to check that here. Verse record of the spell called Joy. So yeah, this is a poem Crowley had written previously, maybe a paraphrase of the stele. Above the gemmed azure is the naked splendor of Nuit. She bends in ecstasy to kiss the sacred ardors of Hadit. The winged globe, the starry blue are mine, O Wankaf na Kansu. For our purposes right now, the important thing is above the gemmed azure is the naked splendor of Nuit. Let there be a veiling of this shrine. Let the light, let the light devour men and eat him up with blindness. So Nuit is infinite space and the infinite stars thereof, insofar as she interacts with us on that most fundamental ground level of our faculty to perceive anything. There she is. This is why she is all touching, all penetrant, above us and in us. Why her ecstasy is in ours. Because we're describing a ground level principle, okay, our faculty of space and time. The infinite space and the infinite stars thereof, but it's above the gemmed azure, where resides the naked splendor of Nuit, beyond our faculty of perception. So that is, and naked splendor again, notice erotic destruction. For one kiss will then be willing to give all. That is the one kiss. Transcend our faculty, our power to perceive. That's why uniting the self to the not self disposes of self and not self, disposes of the aspirant and the cosmos, because it interpenetrates the very grounds of perception, the relationship between the observer and the observed, and destroys both. "61 the Jews call it, but I call it 8 and 80, 418. But they have the half. Unite by thine art, so that all disappear." So the Jews do have half. Verse 61 is still good. Unite by thine art, so that all disappear. Well, half, if 61 is the half, then multiplying it by 2 should unite them. So we're looking for verse 122. Again, there's no verse 122, but if we subtract the 66 verses of of chapter 1 from 122. We're left with, 56? Yeah. Begone, ye mockers. Even though ye laugh in my honor, ye shall not laugh long. Then when ye are sad, know that I have forsaken you. This is the hostility missing from the Christian perspective. See, because it isn't the principle of charity, this willingness to sacrifice. For one kiss wilt thou then be willing to give all. For the Thelemite, selfishness is the fundamental moral principle. If you give up all the things of the earth lose you too, right? And more profoundly, because you go on to a higher place, but in order to do that, you need to devote time and resources and study to magic and meditation, to the OTO maybe, to the AA, whatever your work is. And if there are external calls on your time, like Crowley being called away from his Abermenel operation because of order politics, then you have to say, no, I'm busy. This is important. Crowley has a chapter in Magic Without Tears called Family is Public Enemy Number 1. And he explains that there's no reason why you can't, be polite to your family, carry on good relationships with them, but it should be absolutely clear that spiritual progress is your primary concern, and if they try to interfere with your spiritual progress in any way, then you can make no bones about carving them out of your life completely. In the first part of Book 4, Crowley says that there's the principle of ahimsa, like the non-violence. He says what originally meant do not excite yourself by stalking tigers has come to mean do not boil water for fear of doing harm to the microbes. And this is real. This is no Jan is allowed to boil water. They have to get if they need to cook, they have to get lay people to cook for them so that they aren't disturbing the microbes in the water. So they take their principle of non-killing so seriously. But Crowley says if a barking dog disturbs your meditation and you can get away with it without, feeling guilty, then the best thing to do is to shoot the dog and get on with your meditation. So be radically selfish about the time devoted to your spiritual progress, the time devoted to the great work. That's the other half of this. We aren't talking, for one kiss wilt thou then be willing to give all. We aren't talking about tithing to the church. We're talking about investing in the practice of yoga, magic, and meditation. There's one more thing I want to do today. We're getting up to an hour, so let me just say this. Crowley's taken aback by all this stuff about oblivion, right? Union, erotic destruction in the first 26 pages of 26 verses of chapter 1. And the priest answered. The priest is Crowley. The priest answered and said unto the Queen of Space, kissing her lovely brows, and the dew of her light bathing his whole body in a sweet-smelling perfume of sweat, O Nuit, continuous one of heaven, let it be ever thus, that men speak not of thee as one, but as none. And let them speak not of thee at all, since thou art continuous. See, Crowley is trying to honor her with silence. Verse 7. Behold, it is revealed by Iowaz, the minister of Hoor-Paar-Kraat. Why is it revealed by Iowaz? Why is the Iowaz the minister? What do ministers do? They preach, like preachers? Sort of, but they minister. They encourage, they guide, they care for, they teach, they lighten the hearts of the congregation. So why is Iowaz the minister of Ra-Hoor-Khuit? Because Ra-Hoor-Khuit is the god of silence. It's trans-rational. Above knowledge that we get understanding. So Crowley says, wants to honor Nuit with silence, says, let man speak not of thee as one but as none, and let them speak not of thee at all, since thou art continuous. And I'm not sure whether this is Nuit speaking or just the sort of equivalent of the verse in the Revelation to John the Divine, where it says there was a space in heaven. There was a silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. But verse 28 says, none breathed the light, faint and fairy of the stars. And two. Again, look it on the page. Faint and fairy is parenthetical. You can remove it. None breathed the light of the stars, and two. Again, breathe the light of the stars is parenthetical between two commas. So the sentence actually reads, none and two. This is our first glimmer of the 0 = 2 equation. And Nuit explains, I am divided. And Crowley says, let them speak not of thee at all, since thou art continuous. Let them speak not of thee as one but as none, and let them speak not of thee all, since thou art continuous. Nuit says, none breathe the light, faint and fairy of the stars, and two, I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union. This is the creation of the world, that the pain of division is as nothing, the joy of dissolution all. My prophet is a fool with his one. Nuit hadit, abrahadabra, Ra-Hoor-Khuit. We've been over this 45 minutes ago now, but I hope you remember what we've been talking about. Are not they the ox and none by the book? It resolves to nothing. It resolves to nothing. But I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union. This is the creation of the world. That the pain of division was as nothing, the joy of dissolution all. Finally, I'll just do these next two verses because they're funny. For these fools of men and their woes, care thou not at all. They feel little. What is balanced by weak joys, but ye are my chosen. See, Crowley was speaking that men speak not of thee at all. Crowley was speaking that to honor her. To say, yes, let them honor you with silence. But how could Nuit be insulted? Nuit can't be insulted. I am... With the God and the adore, I'm nothing. They do not see me. They are as upon the earth. I am heaven, and there is no other God than me. You can't blaspheme, Nuit. You are as upon the earth. Even gods, to her, are as upon the earth. There is no other God than me. So Nuit misunderstands. She comes back with, for these fools of men and their woes, care thou not at all. What do you mean you're worried about these fuckers? How they perceive me. They don't have real feelings anyway. Sure, they feel. But whatever they feel, to whatever degree they feel, those feelings are balanced by weak joys. So they have life after a fashion. Ye are my chosen ones. Ye are my chosen ones. Obey my prophet. Follow out the ordeals of my knowledge. Seek me only. Then shall the joy of my love redeem ye from all pain. This is so. I swear it by the vault of my body, by my sacred heart and tongue, by all I can give, by all I desire of ye all. Oh, the heart and tongue is the one of the magical titles of Hadit. Crowley is told, "Be thou Hadit, my heart and my tongue." So Nuit is out there, beyond our faculty of perception, beyond space and time, and we exist infinitesimally small, undefinable, only comprehensible in terms of our relationships with objects and other individuals, with her. But we are the sacred heart and tongue. Love is the law, love under will.